Say hi. Hi, hi. Say hello. Here. Matthew, say hi. Hi. Hi, everybody. Do you like books? Hold this one up. Oh, he likes books. Hello, everyone. Today, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Francis Scott Key Fitzgerald was born in St. Paul, Minnesota on the 24th of September, 1896. Having failed to graduate from Princeton, Fitzgerald enlisted in the Army in 1917 and was posted to Camp Sheridan in Montgomery, Alabama, where he met and fell in love with the celebrated beauty Zelda Sayre. At the end of World War I, Fitzgerald left the Army and returned to St. Paul to continue work on his first novel, This Side of Paradise, which was a huge success. On its publication in March 1920, Fitzgerald became an overnight literary success and married Zelda a week later in New York. The couple then embarked on an extravagant life as celebrities. Their daughter, Scotty, was born on October 1921. And Zelda did not want to marry Scott at first because he was poor, and as the line in Gatsby reads, "Rich girls don't marry poor boys." There's a line in here, and that is apparently what Zelda said to Scott. He threw himself into his literary ambitions primarily to make money so that Zelda would marry him. His first novel was a huge success, and he became the author of the Jazz Age. I don't think he coined the term, the Jazz Age, but he might as well have, because I think his first collection was called Stories of the Jazz Age, which were mostly based on his experience. Drinking during Prohibition, parties, going up to Harlem to hear the musicians. So, is there anyone alive who doesn't know what The Great Gatsby is? Well, I'll tell you who doesn't know what The Great Gatsby is all about. The English literature students that I go to school with, because several times in several different classes, teachers have asked the room, who here has read The Great Gatsby? Of course, tentatively put up my hand. And then the second question is, who has heard of The Great Gatsby? We get a few hands, probably because of the film. And it absolutely breaks my heart, because the first time I read The Great Gatsby, I was in grade 10. So I suppose I would have been 14 years old, 13 or 14, I guess is grade 10. I enjoyed it, even in grade 10. And the teacher, what was her name? Miss Grupner. Miss Grupner did a fantastic job bringing it to life for this classroom of grade 10 students. I felt like I really understood quite a lot about America. The old money, the new money, the social stratospheres at work in West Egg and East Egg. Bootlegging. Those new money bootleggers, they'll do anything to get rich. Not like us old money people sitting on our piles of, wealth from probably slavery. Absolutely breaks my heart that I could be in an English literature class, second year, third year, fourth year, and students have not read Gatsby. This is the fourth time I've read it, and it was for one of my classes. The class is Literary Classics on Film. Maybe we'll talk about that a bit later. I made a video a few months ago where I said, I'm not too keen on reading it again. I think I know it. And God, was I ever wrong. I enjoyed reading Gatsby so much. I feel a bit foolish, actually, what I said in that previous video, because this is a great novel to read, even for the fourth time. Just some of the things that really stuck out was, first of all, how horrible everyone is. Maybe not Nick Carraway. Nick Carraway, who is the narrator of the story and who lives beside Gatsby, if you don't know, you should. Nick Carraway is not too horrible. He's an ingenue, if that applies to men. And let's say it does. He's an ingenue. He sees the corruption of the wealthy classes, and he yearns for it in the beginning, but to the end of the novel, he rejects those people. He sees them for what they are. They're horrible. They're horrible people. And that really struck me in this book, how awful everyone is, like right from the beginning. Like Tom Buchanan is a monster. Nick Carraway, he lives in a tiny little house beside the enormously wealthy Great Gatsby in West Egg, because this is the new money, new money. He's renting like a gardener's house, so he calls it, at $80 a month. And that's how he affords to live beside this insane millionaire. His cousin, Daisy Buchanan, she lives in East Egg, married to Tom Buchanan, and the East Egg is the old money. And Tom Buchanan is one of the richest men in America. This is like the 1% of the 1%. And he is like a perfect monster. But there is a line in this book that, God, it really struck me like a hammer. I think this is my favorite line in the whole book. Her husband, among various physical accomplishments, had been one of the most powerful ends that ever played football at New Haven, a national figure in a way. One of those men who reach such an acute limited excellence at 21 that everything afterwards savors of anticlimax. Isn't that just so perfect? Peak at 21, the great football hero from the richest family, and then everything after that is just a slow, steady decline. So that's who Daisy got married to. Daisy got married to Tom Buchanan. But who is this great Gatsby that Nick Carraway is living beside? Well, he's this man of mystery because he's so obscenely wealthy and he throws all the greatest parties. But he came out of nowhere, and it's said that he made his money from pharmacies, drugstores. And that's code for illegal bootlegging, that you could go to a drugstore with a prescription and you can get booze that way. And that's what is suspected about Gatsby, and I don't know if it's stated outright, but that is the suspicion about this character. He got his money through dirty means. Jay Gatsby is in love with Daisy Buchanan because 5 years ago he met her when he was a soldier in uniform, and he got invited to a party, and she and he had a little one-night fling because she didn't know that he was poor. She saw his soldier uniform and just thought, oh, here's a handsome young man that I'll spend an evening with. But then there's that line, rich girls don't marry poor boys. And so Jay Gatsby, whose actual name is not Jay Gatsby, his name is James Gatz. James Gatz did some things I don't want to tell you about. I don't want to ruin the surprise for you. And he amassed this enormous wealth. And so he now in West Egg is throwing the most lavish parties that anyone has ever seen or even heard of. These are, imagine if someone was spending $5 million on a party on a Friday night, what that would look like. And then what happens? Well, as I said, everybody in the novel's horrible. Tom Buchanan, at one point he goes to meet his girlfriend. Like, they all drive to New York City and they have a party in a hotel room, which is basically like a teenager. They all drink whiskey and they listen to the radio and they act like a bunch of dummies. And at one point, Tom's girlfriend, Myrtle, says something he doesn't like, and he slaps her so hard that he breaks her nose. That's a hard slap. Slapping a woman so hard that her nose gets broken. God. Tom's wife, Daisy, well, she's just an empty, little, superficial, money-hungry woman. Like, there's a scene where Gatsby is showing off his whole palatial wealth. He's taking her on a big tour of his mansion and luxury, luxury, luxury. It culminates with him taking her to his enormous closet and showing her all of his silk shirts and telling her, oh, I have a man in London. Every season he sends me over a collection of new shirts, and he's throwing all these shirts onto the furniture to show her, look at my shirts. And she's picking them up and she's crying. I've never seen such lovely shirts. Like, she's shedding tears over Gatsby's wardrobe. That's pretty goddamn shallow. Daisy Buchanan has a friend, Jordan Baker. Jordan Baker is a professional golfer, and she tries to set Nick up with Jordan Baker, but Jordan Baker is much worse than Daisy. Daisy's a bit of an airhead. She even says that about her child. She has a daughter, and she says, oh, I hope she'll be a fool. There's nothing better for a woman to grow up to be a perfect fool. It's one of Daisy's lines. But Jordan Baker is really, there's something mercenary in her. Like, she really kind of upset me in this book. She's so, like the cat has its claws out in this character. It's fun to read about, but it really made me think, oh, I've met a couple of women like that, and they are, they are not cool to have around. Why did Jordan Baker upset me so much? Well, I guess it's because there's one line that really does it for me. She talks about how she's really quite a dangerous driver. Like Nick and her, they're dating, and they have this discussion where he complains about her driving, like, you know, Jordan, you're going to get killed. And she says, well, I always rely on other drivers to pay attention to my driving so as to avoid accidents. And he says, well, what will happen when you meet a driver who drives the same way you do? That told me everything I needed to know about Jordan Baker and just how horrible I found that character. What about Jay Gatsby? Is he horrible? Well, he's stuck in the past 5 years ago. Nick says to him, he's like, you know, Jay, you can't recreate the past. And Gatsby says, of course you can. Of course you can. What do you think I'm doing here with this mansion and these parties and this, like all of this is me recreating the past so that Daisy and I can go back 5 years in time and be together again. That's what Gatsby really thinks. And that is, well, of course, that's a tragedy to think something like that. If you've ever got a phone call late at night from one of your drunken ex-boyfriend, girlfriends. I was just thinking about you. Yeah, I just thinking about you. Thought I'd give you a call. I know it's been 3 or 4 years, but I'm just sitting here thinking about you. Anything else I need to say about The Great Gatsby? Well, it is number 2 on the Modern Library's 100 Greatest Novels of the 100 Greatest Novels of the 20th Century, English Written. 100 Greatest English Written Novels of the 20th Century. Number 2. So this is technically the second best novel that was written between 1900 and 1999. Is it? Well, it's pretty goddamn good. I do have to say that. Like, it is a wonderful book. Now, let me tell you what I don't like, because I've always got to put in what I don't like, god damn it. So I said I'm taking this class for literary classics on film. So what I had to do was read Gatsby, hurrah, because it really made me feel a bit foolish for saying, oh, I know Gatsby, I don't need to read that anymore. I was so happy to read this again, and I recommend you do the same thing, even if you've read it a couple of times in the past. You know, it's one of those books every 10 years. Excuse me. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So, I do not want to watch the movie of any book that is considered literature. I feel like I've told this story 100 times, but when I was a boy, I watched One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I loved it. It was one of my favorite films. And then I read the book by Ken Kesey, and I just could not get the actors out of my mind. And of course, the book is so incredibly different from the film. You know, and I really want to read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest again, but I know that those characters are locked with the faces of those actors. The same thing for Bram Stoker's Dracula, Gary Oldman, Anthony Hopkins, Winona Ryder. Like, those faces are forever in my imagination linked to the names of those characters. And for this class, I had to watch the 2013 version with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire. And I thoroughly hated that movie. Now, I do have to give them some leeway, because I think that if you're going to make a film of The Great Gatsby, it is very difficult to make a subtle film. Because Gatsby's all about going over the top. It's about going to the most lavish extremes. And you want to show that in your film. It's just that it makes it hard to show the subtlety. And I think that is what's beautiful in art, especially literature and films, is the subtle things, the things that are beneath the surface, the things that are hinted at. And in Gatsby, the film, nothing is hinted at. It is hitting you over the goddamn head with a bat. I think Tobey Maguire is an awful actor. Even though I haven't seen him in a lot of films, like, it just seems that in every film, he always does the exact same thing. It's always that, you know, kind of suspicious look. And then the look down to the side. You know, that, you know, always the extreme close-up, he's looking suspicious. Down to the side, now he knows. Just always that Tobey Maguire face. And if I'm not mistaken, like, he starts the movie with this quite strong accent, and somewhere towards the middle of the film, that accent disappears, and it's just the Tobey Maguire voice again. The actress who played Jordan Baker, I thought was really quite good. She's enormous. She's an extremely tall woman, and so that was kind of fun to have this woman that Nick Carraway is supposedly dating towering over him. I thought that was very nice. I really don't care too much about costumes, you know, even if it is a period drama. I don't care about how much money they spent on these party scenes. It was too much, and I realize it has to be too much, but I can't enjoy it because it's too much. And they're using this modern hip-hop music for a film about something that took place in 1921, 22. You know, when I heard this music, I instantly knew why they were using this hip-hop music, is so that they can put it in the trailer, so that way a bunch of young teenagers will think that it's a fun movie to go to see. Like, oh, Gatsby, look, they're wearing all these old clothes, and I have to read that for high school, so let's go see it. And, you know, at least the music's going to be good. Because, you know, old people like me just don't go to see movies anymore, even if they did want to see some literary classics in the cinema. So many weird choices. Like, they're using this really wild special effects for these car chase scenes. They have these old 1920s cars, but they're traveling like spaceships so fast. Okay, come on, Grant. Big spectacle, 2013. I believe the film was in 3D because that was the 3D era. So it was like big, over-the-top, gold, flash, music, everything. But I found it a horrible, horrible film. It was such a chore to watch. Tobey Maguire as Nick Carraway was annoying. He's an annoying actor. Maybe he's a good actor because he's annoying, but I don't think he's supposed to be annoying in this film. I think he's supposed to be this lovable ingenue from the countryside who goes to New York to make the big money, and he gets caught up in this money whirlwind of East Egg, West Egg, and in the end it kind of sickens him. And at the beginning of the film, they added this weird scene where Tobey Maguire, Nick Carraway, is in a sanitarium for like morbid alcoholism. You know, he's wasting away, and that's when he's affecting this really strong, weird accent. The psychiatrist who he's speaking to encourages him to write out his memories. And so, while he's in the sanitarium, we have to assume that Nick Carraway is a writer who eventually writes The Great Gatsby. And several times in the film, like when he meets Tom Buchanan, he says to him, he says, oh, how's the great American novel coming? But in the real Great Gatsby, the novel, Nick Carraway is not a writer, not at all. And there is none of this morbid alcoholism of the character. In fact, when they go to this hotel, when Tom breaks Myrtle's nose, he says, I had only been drunk twice in my life, and this was the second time, and I got really drunk. That's what he says. And I think that works because he's telling the audience, I don't know about this big city whiskey lifestyle. I've only been drunk once. That tells us a lot about the character. Yeah, so the film was awful. I really didn't like it. Leonardo DiCaprio. I will have to say that there probably cannot be a more difficult character to play than Jay Gatsby, because so many people have so many ideas about what the character means and what the character is all about. And you have to have the biggest actor in America at the time, who's also a young man. You have to have the biggest young talent you can find, because Gatsby's a gangster, supposedly. You need someone who's debonair, but at the same time has a streak of potential violence inside of them. In the book and in the film, Gatsby has this mannerism. He calls everybody old sport. And it's too much in the book, and it's way too much in the film. As much as I thought Leonardo DiCaprio did a good job playing one of the hardest roles to play, the fact that he said old sport dozens of times really got on my nerves. Don't watch the movies of literary novels. Don't do it. Like, why would you? The difference between a book and a film. A book, you pick it up, you open it up, and you look at, okay, I finished there. Well, wait a minute, I don't remember this. And so you flip back a page, and you have to read a page. And you have to remember, and your brain has to be working, and you have to be remembering the entire story in your mind to know where you are now and to know where you are going next. Your brain is highly activated because you need to remember all of the components. Who is this character? Is this the first time I'm encountering this character, or have I met this character in the past? Your brain is really switched on. A movie comes on and it just goes over your consciousness like a bulldozer. You don't need to think. It just gets blasted into your senses without any mental cognition. It just happens in front of you. you know, the way they do it, oh, okay, this character always wears that color, this character always wears that color, so now I know, okay, that's the red character, that's the green character. You know, the movies just blast your imagination to nothing. You don't need it. It's happening for you. And a book, you need to rely on your memory to know what has happened and what you think will come next. You need to remember who the characters are and what roles they are playing within the book. Your brain is on. Don't ruin your imagination by watching the movies. Do not, please do not do it. A lot of people say, oh, you know, they talk about The Sheltering Sky by Paul Bowles, and they ask me, have you seen the film? In the nicest possible way, I always try to say no, and I never will, because I think the book is so creative and so imaginative that I would never choose to have my imagination ruined by watching some, even if it's the best film ever made, I don't want to see it because it just stampedes my imagination, and now whoever the actors are, I will always have them imprinted, superimposed on the book. I can't read the book without the actors in my mind. So there you go. I won't do a book lottery for this one because, you know, just look around. You've probably got The Great Gatsby somewhere around you. It is a wonderful book, though. If you're sort of thinking, you know, should I read Gatsby or would it ruin it? Like, I think this is a book that you can come back to and come back to. I just made a video of Slaughterhouse-Five, and I talked about how I hated it to read it at a more mature age. And Gatsby's not like that. Gatsby you can go back to, and I think you could see new things. I'll let you know in 10 years' time, you know, if I happen to go back to Gatsby and if it still resonates. But I think it is a wonderful book, and I feel stupid that I said that I don't need to read it again because I loved it. Yeah, number 2 on the list. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. God damn, I always forget to say that. Please like and subscribe, and have a great day. Opa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Say book. Say book. Book. I know I'm wearing a tie. I don't usually wear a tie.